Hello everybody and welcome to another new player tip video. Today Eric and I are here to talk about Parallel Skids O'Toole, one of my favorite investigators to play. I love Parallel Skids O'Toole. He's incredible.
Isn't this the one, though, that you told me you hated?
I hate normal Skids O'Toole, not Parallel Skids O'Toole.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew I was right.
You were, yeah. Normal Skids, not a fan. Parallel Skids, oh boy! So Parallel Skids, hold on. Before we get to that, you might be wondering what the hell a parallel investigator is. So before we get into it, they are print and play investigators that are available on Fantasy Flight Games' website for free. You can download them, print them off, cut them out, put them on cards, play with them. You can check the video description for a link. They come with the front, back, and advanced cards, which you can use to replace the signature cards that are normally included. They're just basically like better or different versions of the cards that already exist.
Now, do you know why Fantasy Flight decided to do this? Was it just a way of revisiting?
I think that my personal hunch, and it's because they released 5 of them, and they're doing it again now. There's actually more parallel investigators coming out.
Nice.
I think that it's 2 things. It's core set, and these are the 5 core set investigators that they've been out for a long time. A little bit of like a refresher, reimagining is kind of cool. Number 2, the design team is small, and they probably have time where they don't need to be designing the campaign because it's currently like in playtesting. So they're kind of like, what do we do? Right? So they design parallel investigators. That's my personal hunch. You know, like they get an idea and they're like, that could be fun. And they're also generally more complex than box investigators. Not all the time, but generally they are. Parallel Skids O'Toole. 2, 3, 3, 4 for his stat line. He's a criminal. As a lightning bolt, you can spend up to 3 resources and test a base skill value of 3 against a difficulty equal to the amount of resources you just spent. If you succeed, you're going to gain twice the number of spent resources. So you can gamble, baby. You can spend 1 resource to test 3 to 1 and gain 2 resources if you pass. It's also a lightning bolt, so you can do it once per round at any lightning bolt window. However, you can only commit foot and wild skill icons to the test. His Elder Sign effect is one of the strongest in the game. Choose a level 2 or less card in your discard pile and add the chosen card to your hand.
Whoa.
So, like, incredibly powerful. Skids O'Toole, the number 1 tip that I have to give you, and I've played a lot of Skids O'Toole, like I think I've played him like through like 6 campaigns at this point, is you should be gambling every turn with your ability. It's more money. It's free money. It's not free money, but it's like free money. And you're going to lose some, but don't be afraid of losing. This does change depending on the symbols in the chaos bag. Like if there's one that's like -3 if you fail,
take a horror,
or like put 2 doom on the agenda.
Yeah.
Then like commit a card, like so you can like get through that, right? Just like, but generally you want to be trying to gamble every turn. Because more money means more gambling, means playing more cards, means being able to take advantage of stuff, and just like getting free money is really, really, really good. Just do it. Don't be scared of it. You want to be doing it every turn. I usually, if I don't have anything else to do, I do it first, right? Just because like it's I can then dictate the pace of my turn depending on how my gambling went. So you want to be looking at doing that every chance that you can get every turn. Cards can also help it. If we go back to the ability, I'm going to just like, this is a little preview, but cards like High Roller and Well Connected work well with Skid's ability. You notice that it's only foot and wild icons can be committed to this test. However, if we look at the text on High Roller and Well Connected, you get +2 skill value for this skill test. So it's actually increasing your skill value, which is a base skill value of 3. It's just a generic skill value of 3. So, High Roller, spend 3, exhaust, get +2. If you succeed, gain 3 resources. Put money into your gambling to hopefully make that some more money back. Well Connected is very good with Parallel Skids because it's just exhausted. You get +1 skill value for every 5 resources you have. There's an upgraded version of Well Connected. I didn't include it here because it's in the Return To boxes, which at this point seem to be slowly being discontinued. But it's now +4. So the idea is that you spend the early game using your Well Connected to gamble, and then in the later game, you use it to pass every test that's thrown at you, and you're just not scared of anything because you have a big pile of money, which you can use your Well Connected for.
That's wild.
Yeah, so it's a very powerful like way to use it to influence the ability. Notably, as I say all this, cards like Hard Knocks don't work with Parallel Skids' ability because those are giving you +1 foot. It's not committing a skill icon of it because it's not a foot that's being tested. It's just your base skill value being tested.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So just something to be aware of with this. Well Connected works because it's a +1 skill value. Hard Knocks doesn't because you're not testing foot.
There also couldn't be a more perfect comparison between cards of attractive human being and not attractive human being. I just have to say.
Yeah.
Same pose and everything.
Yeah. This is an important one. Look at scaling your gambling with the game. Don't be gambling for 3 early on. Start at 1 and scale up as you have more tools to influence power over the game. This is something that is actually like quite important for card games in general. You want to be scaling with the game, right?
Yeah.
This goes like this is especially true, and actually a lot of you do this without even knowing it when you're playing ARKHAM, because the game is designed to just naturally scale you. In scenario 1, you have 0 XP decks. Scenario 8, you have like 29 to 39 XP decks. That's you scaling with the game. But you can actually scale with the game during a scenario, right? Like you even yourself do this with Leo Anderson when we played. You start with 1 weapon, you put enchant weapon on that weapon. That's you scaling with what the game can provide and your threats get better. And of course with Skids O'Toole that's no exception. Because like why would you want to gamble 3 for your first gamble and then potentially lose all those resources because you're just testing 3 to 3? Or alternatively, spending all of your resources to just get 3 more resources when you could slowly just go 3 to 1, 3 to 1, 3 to 1, 3 to 2, plus well connected, right? Like it's a good way to ensure that your gambling is less of a gambling and more like kind of like cheating the system. Because Skids is a criminal after all, right?
Obviously.
Yeah. And like this is where like well connected is really good. Why I say you want to like grow with your well connected, and it's kind of just like because of that reason. Yeah. What's next? Okay, we're still talking about gambling. It's kind of Skids' big thing. On standard difficulty, a gamble for 1 is a very safe gamble. So if you haven't gambled but don't feel confident, just gamble for 1. This goes back to my original tip of just gambling every turn is key. And gambling for 1 is easy because on standard, generally the average token modifier falls around 2. Of course, this can change, but it's generally a safe gamble. Let's look at Parallel Skids' backside for a second, and this is going to blow Eric's mind. Oh, I have 2 of these? Let's take a look at his backside. Look at that. We got to do it twice.
I love it.
All right. So, don't forget about the ability to add extra copies of Fortune and Gambits to your deck. Your deck size is smaller for a reason. So, Skids' deck size is 25.
Wild.
And when you upgrade a Fortune or Gambit, you may instead pay the full experience cost of the higher level version and leave the lower level version in your deck. And it does not count towards your deck size for the number of copies of your deck. So, if we have some examples here, Money Talks, Lucky, these are 2 Gambits and Fortunes that you can add more of a good thing to your deck. So you can keep the original Luckies. If you're going big money, you can keep the original Money Talks. Don't neglect this. Don't neglect this.
This is like super myriad.
Yeah, it's like super myriad. And like there's only 2 investigators who can do this. Parallel Skids and Parallel Agnes, as far as I'm aware, with the quick check through my database in my brain. But it's a very powerful ability, and you do not want to neglect it unless you're doing some other things, which we're going to be getting to. But just like this is a very powerful thing that you should be thinking of, especially when you're the majority of your kit is done for upgrading.
Because
you want to
Lucky
get
would work on it too, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah, for his gambling ability, yeah. Notably, I was reading online, Money Talks, from what the consensus I found online, would not work because it's specifically talking about these types that it replaces. But when you have a lot of money, Money Talks is still good because it means you can pass a test. But yes, Lucky does work for gambling. Right? Better lucky than good. Okay. Next tip here is, speaking of the smaller deck size, why don't you try Parallel Skids with Underworld support for an even smaller deck?
I see.
Underworld support, you can have your deck size is reduced by 5, so it's down to 20, but you can only have 1 copy of each non-weakness, non-signature card in your deck. I will say, every time this comes up, I might be wrong at this point, and maybe someone in the comments can point me if this has actually been clarified outside of an email from Fantasy Flight Games, like an actual like FAQ ruling. But no one, I think, knows 100% on if you can use the additional options with Underworld support. My gut says yes, but I don't think there's an actual like official FAQ description for it. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about the other use case of Underworld support, assuming you can't add additional Fortune or Gambits. Why would you want to do this? Well, because it works exceptionally well with exceptional cards, given you have a higher probability of drawing them in your opening hand. Exceptional cards, you only get one of them, right? So if you have 28 cards in your starting deck, I think you have like a 37-ish% chance to draw it. And then if you have 23 cards in your deck, it goes up to like a 45% chance. It's like an 8% increase, which means you're very likely to hit your exceptional cards, and they're exceptional for a reason. They're very powerful, and you only have one of them, so you need to find them. Parallel Skids, my favorite Parallel Skids to do is just when you do Underworld support, and on the last scenario, every card in your deck has experience. And you've scaled with the game more than anyone can ever fathom. Just every card in your deck is a haymaker. So I think you should definitely try it out if it interests you, because these are all very powerful cards, and being able to see them on turn one because you just maul until you find it is incredible. It's going to win you the game.
I am jealous of that too, because you're using some of the items that I find most interesting.
Yeah.
Which are the Scarlet Keys items.
Yeah.
And I'm just
actually, it made me realize that these cards, the red clock and the black fan, were from Edge of the Earth, but they always like to foreshadow the next one. I was like, oh, these are foreshadowing Scarlet Keys. They were.
That's amazing.
But yeah, no, it's very fun and very powerful, so I highly suggest you check it out. This is his signature weakness. This is hospital debts, and anyone can help pay your mom's hospital debts. So hospital debts is a lightning bolt. Move a resource from your resource pool to hospital debts. And when the game ends, if there are fewer than 9 resources on it, you earn 2 fewer experience. Reasonably soft for a weakness. Actually, quite soft, but anyone can pay it.
Yeah.
Right, because it's in your threat area, and anyone can interact with cards in your threat area. So ask your teammates if they're good people or not, and if they love your mom. Because if they love your mom, they'll put some money into the hospital debts.
Yeah.
It's a group limit, so everyone can put up to 3 on the debts each turn. However, when you're gambling, this is really easy to get to. The worst part is when you see it before the end of the scenario, but hopefully by then everyone will have the money that they can put in to get it.
We've always been up a pile of money on most of the games we win.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, but just anyone can pay your mom's hospital debts. And finally, one last tip. This was a little bit advanced. This is where I learned something new. I knew that you could do this, and I knew that this was a very powerful thing that Skids could do, but I never looked at the full potential of it. So I learned something new for this last tip. For me, for Eric, and for all of you at home, you can use your ability to test at 0. Now, you might be asking, why the hell would you do that? And that's what I was asking this morning, so I did a bit of research. Why would I want to do that? Because there's some gross things you can do when making a free test at 0. So, you don't get money when you do this, but imagine if you committed all these cards to a test for free. So you do quick thinking, you do nimble, you do momentum, you do all in, and you only fail on the auto fail. So that means if you pass, you get to take an action, you get to move by the amount you pass by, your next test difficulty gets reduced by 2, and you get to draw a card for each one that you've succeeded by. I've never tried a Skids that does this, and I think I know what I'm going to be doing in an upcoming campaign, because
you need to do really this with exceptional Skids.
Yeah, it's
smaller card pool with just this.
And these are cards that I'll run. Nimble's really good, Quick Thinking's really good, Momentum's it's a fine card, but it's great in this combo. But this seems like a really come on, Russ. We're talking about Skids O'Toole right now. Oh no, you got me all trapped. But just think of what you could, and that's actionless. So that's a free. You do that as a lightning bolt. And I always knew that there were potential very powerful things you could do at 0, but I'm not really the kind of person who likes to do those kind of things, but I can see why people do them. They seem really powerful.
That's
insane.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Hopefully you all learned some tips for playing Parallel Skids, because as I said, I did. I learned something new about Parallel Skids today, and he's one of my favorites. So, shows one, the power of the game and the power of Parallel Skids. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Next week, not next week, the next one for this, we have a fan favorite, Diana Stanley. So that's going to be a great one. She's a very cool investigator, and a lot of people love the hell out of her, so hopefully I can do enough tips to make it interesting. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. And as always, a GG's.